The score standing at 160, 130. It's clear the Bradbury family have won. I congratulate them. I commiserate the Smith family, who fought excellently, and they got 130. But it's the Bradburys who come back to fight a third time against, in a later round of this little contest.
The BBC's schedule didn't give us much time for tourism, but here are some photos from our second round visit when we took a quick look round South Kensington and Kensington Gardens. I didn't take a camera to the third recording, which incidentally makes me suspect that was the time when a rail dispute forced the BBC to book us on a flight from Manchester to London, my first ever trip in an aeroplane. Anyway, usual conditions apply. Dad recorded this programme using his college's monochrome equipment, possibly a Sony AV3600. 50 years and several copying generations later, the quality is not superb, but it basically works. So here we go.
Hello, we approach Philippi. The first of two semi-finals feature the following gladiators. The Bradbury family from Sale in Cheshire, Mr. Dennis Bradbury, a college lecturer.
Hello.
And with him is Mrs. Margaret Bradbury.
Hello.
Their children are David, 16, and Jennifer, 14.
Hello.
Their opponents, the Taylor family from Tollerton, Nottingham, Mr. Dennis Taylor, a civil servant.
Hello.
Mrs. Janet Taylor, telephonist.
Hello.
Their children, Anne, 16, and Georgina, 14.
Hello.
We proceed immediately to the first question, which is, as ever, an anagram. And I'll give you a clue. A detective.
Inspector Maigret.
That is the answer. We may see it appear. Inspector Maigret. That was very quick. Which word? This is only a matter, this one, I think, of pressing your buzzer quickly enough. So, which words, sounding the same but spelt differently, mean type of mammal, a country, and doleful cries?
Where?
Wales.
Wales, yes, Wales fits the bill in every case. Now, listen to this bit of music. Let's see what we get. I simply ask you this, if you're poised, what country, what city?
New York and Spain.
Yes.
Harlem.
Yes, Spanish Harlem is the name of the piece of music, and Harlem is the Puerto Rican district of New York. But New York and Spain, yes, that'll do. What country and what city? This year, New Year's Day was on a Monday. What day will the 31st of December be? This year, New Year's Day was on a Monday. What day will be?
It'll be on a Monday.
You're quite right. You're quite right. Did you work that out, Mr. Taylor? Or
Well, it's one day more when it's 365.
Well, it says here the first and the last day of the year are always the same, provided it isn't a leap year. Probably you've just given me the mathematics for that magic formula. If Z equals 1, then what is the word? It's a matter of totting them up on your fingers, I dare say.
Colditz.
Colditz. Mr. Bradbury, you're quite right. It fills itself in. Colditz is the answer. 20 plays 30. If it takes a clock 30 seconds to strike 6, how long does it take to strike 12?
25 seconds.
No.
No, I'm sorry.
Now, do the Bradburys know? Don't have to press. Only press if you're agitated. Yes, 66. I see.
66.
66 is the answer. Worth waiting for. You let them in very early there, Mrs. Taylor. What have Hawaiian missionaries, Prussian blue, and Dartford tuppennies in common?
they're postage stamps.
That's quite right. That's what they have in common. And you probably don't know anything about them, or do you, Mr. Taylor?
Well, I think
Well, no. I don't wish to test your knowledge, but I didn't want to load you with information in case if you knew it. The Hawaiian missionaries are stamps often sent by missionaries in Hawaii in 1851, and they're worth an awful lot of money. If you've got a good one, it's worth 30,000 quid. A Prussian blue was a George V stamp, which should have been ultramarine, and a Dartford Tuppenny was a stamp issued in 1956, imperforated, when it should have had little holes all round it, and that's worth a lot too. Children only. Mark Twain published a novel about two boys, one a prince, who was the other, children only?
Pauper.
Yes, you're right. Not Huckleberry Finn, not Tom Sawyer, but Prince and the Pauper, the Prince and the Pauper. Here we have a crossword anagram, and the clue to it is something you have at tea time, or, well, you can have it at any time, but something you have at tea time. This is for everyone, of course, not just the children. Sailors.
Meat paste.
Meat paste. Meat it is, I set it down. Meat paste. Yes, do you know, it's such an old-fashioned treat. I can't remember when I last saw a jar, but they assure me that there is still happening. What is the missing number within the bracket? You see a blank bracket. Can you supply the number? By applying the principle in the filled bracket above it.
16.
No.
4.
No. The answer is 32. It's the difference multiplied by 4. 240 people went to a coffee drinking. Half of them drank 1 cup of coffee, and 2/3 of the remainder drank 2 cups of coffee. If the charge was 3 new pence a cup, how much was taken? How much did they make? You have 240 people. Half of them drank 1 cup. 2/3 of the remainder drank 2 cups. If the charge was 3 new pence a cup, how much money was taken?
£5.40.
No.
£5.40.
No? With a great sigh of relief from the tailors, they settle back their 7-figure logarithms.
£8.40.
£8.40 is the answer. Where you lost your £3, Mrs. Bradbury, I shall never know. You must have been on the track, otherwise you wouldn't have got the fraction. This question for father and younger child. Which English king married in Cyprus in the 12th century? Father and younger child. I think the others know it, but they mustn't tell. They can do it by telepathy, but we don't know anything about that. Which English king married in Cyprus in the 12th century, father and younger child?
Richard the Lionheart.
Yes, Richard I. He married Berengaria at Limassol on 12th of May, 1191. 40 plays 70. Can you identify this? It's a picture of something. As soon as you know, tell us. Rather difficult, that. Yes.
Cake board.
A cake board? No. Not a cake board. Now the tailors, can they tell? They're cunningly waiting until they've seen as much of it as the producer's going to permit them to see.
It's not a cigarette lighter, is it?
I think you'd better say something, otherwise...
Yes, say something.
All right, it's a cigarette lighter.
No, it's a seat belt.
Oh.
You see those words, to adjust?
Yes.
But still, that could be on a cigarette lighter.
Well, I've never seen it.
There, you see, it becomes a little clearer. Not all that much. If you add the maids a-milking to the swans a-swimming and divide by the gold rings, what creatures would you be left with?
French hens.
That's quite right. How many of them, by the way? That was quick. How many, by the way?
3.
Yes, that's right. Oh, very clever. It's 8 maids a-milking plus 7 swans a-swimming. That equals 15. And divide by the gold rings, 5 gold rings. And you're left with 3 French hens in the course of that little bit of pretty doggerel. If Jupiter, Apollo, Minerva, Zeus, Athena, and Diana were invited to a feast, how many would sit down at table? Jupiter, Apollo, Minerva, Zeus, Athena, and Diana. Invited to a feast, how many would sit down at table?
3.
No? 4's the answer, because Jupiter's Latin for the Greek Zeus, and Minerva is Latin for the Greek Athena. You get the answer 4. Now, the same fish completes all 6 words begun by the letters you will see before you?
Ray.
My goodness, that was quick. Ray, yes. Is he going to fill it? Oh, well, there you are. Bray, dray, fray, grey, pray, tray. Very good with black butter, that fish. Now then, if I tell you that a truthful city is veracity, you see what sort of area we're in. It ends in C-I-T-Y. 10 points each. What are, and this is really only a test of speed, I imagine, a bold city?
Audacity.
Audacity is the answer. A stretched city.
Elasticity.
Yes, yes. Ready, steady, go. A savage city.
Ferocity.
Yes, ferocity. A speedy city.
Velocity.
Velocity. Now the last one comes, it really is only a test of speed. A deceitful city.
Is it mendacity?
Yes, or it could have been duplicity, but mendacity does very well. 70, 120. Now we have a little music. I expect you'll enjoy this. I mean it. Funny the way all the rough stuff seems to go on much longer. That was rather nice, wasn't it? Who composed it?
Haydn.
Haydn is quite right. And his name, beginning with letter H, is the slender excuse on which we suspend the following selection of questions. Other well-known names beginning with H, and we'll take you each in turn for a solo go. First of all, Mr. Bradbury, a Carthaginian general and noted employer of the pachyderm.
Hannibal.
Hannibal rode over the Alps, as I remember, I mean, not that I was there, on an elephant. Mr. Taylor, a bridge defender, beginning with H.
Horatio.
Or Horatius, but I don't think I'll
Horatius.
penalise you for Horatio. Mrs. Bradbury, a Tudor queen who lost her head. Her maiden name, of course. Beginning with H.
Catherine Howard.
Catherine Howard, absolutely right, and it sent the Taylors into a fit of giggles. No one will ever know why. Mrs. Taylor. She began as a nursemaid and became the mistress of a sailor. Became the mistress, I should say, of an admiral. Still, some admirals go to sea even now.
Lady Hamilton.
Lady Hamilton is right. The Bradbury children, a comedian who recently travelled from Pompeii to Baghdad.
Howard.
Oh, of course, Frankie Howard. And finally, the Taylor children, a medical man who was present at the gunfight at the OK Corral.
Doc Holliday.
Doc Holliday's right. He actually trained as a dentist, it says here, but Doc Holliday is what he's called. All together now, can you identify this? You buzz as soon as you know what it is.
I'm going to guess they're like bathing huts to me.
That's just what they are. Beach huts, bathing huts, what you get changed in and go swimming from. That's what they are. If you have a lawn 36 feet long by 24 feet wide, how wide must a path that runs all round that area be to make the total area, that's to say the lawn and the path, twice the area of the lawn alone? How wide must this path be if it runs round a lawn 36 feet long by 24 feet wide, with the object of making the total area twice the area of the lawn?
1 yard.
No. It's 36 feet by 24 feet, that lawn. You want to put a path round it to make the total area, path and lawn, twice the area of the lawn alone. How wide must the path be?
6 feet wide.
6 feet is the answer. That was worth waiting for. Now tell me this, all of you. What have elbow in Measure for Measure, Dogberry in Much Ado, and dull in Love's Labour's Lost in common?
Watchman.
Well, I'll take what they were constables, but I will take watchman because I think the terms could be interchangeable. This question now is for mother and elder child only. Which fictional character was in turn Mrs. Hamilton, Mrs. Kennedy, Mrs. Butler, but she had a notion to be Mrs. Wilkes? Mother and elder child, fictional character. She'd been Mrs. Hamilton, Mrs. Kennedy, Mrs. Butler, but she took a shine to a fellow called Wilkes. Wanted to be Mrs. Wilkes.
It's not Scarlett O'Hara, is it?
Oh, yes, it is. Scarlett O'Hara fits the criteria. Now, when we have this little square, which will pop up any minute now, full of numbers, you must fill in the blanks.
Top right, 6. In the middle, 5. Bottom right, 2.
That's correct. Will they pop in to prove it? Yes. And they add up to 15 every which way, and it's always known as a magic square, because they do add up to 15, any way you take them. Phileas Fogg, you recall, went round the world in 80 days, assuming his route was round the equator. What was his average speed in miles an hour? Of course, in round figures, given that the equator is 25,000 miles for the purpose of this little conundrum. He went round the world in 80 days, and assuming he went round the equator, which we take to be 25,000 miles for this sum, what was his average speed in miles an hour? Taylor fan.
13.
13 is the answer. I think I would have taken 14, but it's nearer 13 than 14. 13 and 1/48 miles an hour, someone computed, but 13's near enough. Now, listen to this. Here's a bit of music. Pretty easy, this one, if you all stand by. 2 pieces of music, same title, what?
Softly, softly.
Softly, softly is the answer. I think the first piece was sung by Ruby Murray, that my information is, and the other piece is, of course, incidental music or theme music to the series Softly, Softly, and in various guises to ancillary series of it. Now let's just see how quickly you can give me the answers to these. What common household substances are they? 1. A compound resulting from a reaction between an acid and a base.
Salt.
Taylor's. Salt is the answer. A dyestuff consisting of the dried bodies of the insect Coccaius cacti.
Cochineal.
Cochineal's the answer. Now, this one is so easy, I'm sure it's only a matter of racing. A popular infusion of dried and crushed leaves from an Indian bush.
Tea.
Quite right, the Bradburys have got it right. Tea, I dare say the Taylors knew as well. Now then, a dilute solution of carbonic acid flavoured with citrus.
Lemonade.
Lemonade is right, the Bradburys get the point there. The score standing at 230 and 140, we come to our last question. And it's simply this: as soon as you recognise this very well-known face, buzz away.
Arthur Lowe.
Arthur Lowe, I think in his character as Captain Mannering. Yes, indeed. There he is. That splendid figure. Right, the score, 230, 150. It's plain the Taylor family have won. I congratulate them. The worst that can now happen to them is that they come second in the total competition. I commiserate with the Bradburys, who got so far, and on that I congratulate them. But it's the Taylors who return to meet in the final round. The programme itself returns at the same time next week. Until then, goodbye.
And next week, in the second semi-final, the two families will be the Allens from Northwood, Middlesex, and the Simmons from Canterbury, Kent.
So that was the Bradbury family's third and last 15 minutes of fame. We got a cute trophy from Mappin and Webb, plus of course appearance fees, which helped to pay for my second trip in an aeroplane later that year when we had a holiday in northern Italy. Oh, and somehow a neatly painted strip of plastic accompanied us as we left the studio. In case you're wondering, my sister went on to a somewhat high-flying career with a multinational firm. I became a librarian with a sideline in history, which has led me down some very interesting rabbit holes. But now I'm a shopkeeper in Whitehaven on the Cumbrian coast, selling second-hand pictures of the English Lake District.